Colette, thank you so much for joining us
Absolutely,
here.
my pleasure.
It's a very busy conference this year, thousands of delegates here. Is that a sort of testament to how the industry's doing and where we're at the moment?
I would absolutely say it is. I've been to this conference now, it's my third year, and I've watched it multiply in terms of sheer, number, not just the sheer numbers, but just the conversations and the way they've advanced over time has been really exciting to see.
You've been here 3 years, but you've been in the industry an awful lot longer than that. What shift have you seen during that time, and how has this industry changed in its approach?
Great shifts. First and foremost, I'd have to say that venture capital, I am an LP, so I invest in venture capital firms. And years ago, in 2002 actually, when I first arrived in Europe, there wasn't that much risk involved in venture capital, which sounds funny as we speak about it now, but it really wasn't. They were mostly investment bankers going into venture capital, serving as GPs, and they wanted that sure thing. Well, we all know there's no such thing as a sure thing in this asset class. And what's happened over time is that we really see the risk averseness has been winnowed out. Why is that? Well, those people clearly didn't get returns, or perhaps they didn't have the stomach for it. So the venture capitalists, the GPs that are around now and have been around for 15, 20 years, have always had that fire in their belly. Also, the next generation, even millennials, because there are now millennial GPs, believe it or not, they're used to taking risks. They're not afraid of it. They understand what it takes to build companies. Secondly, I would have to say that the face of entrepreneurship has changed. When I first came to Europe, being an entrepreneur was not celebrated. In fact, it was almost something to be ashamed of. I remember in Paris back in 2003-04, one of the entrepreneurs that I was working with took me aside and said, my parents are ashamed of me. And it's basically expected that since I couldn't get a good job, and that's why I became an entrepreneur, I had to start my own company. And as an American and having come from Silicon Valley, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't really wrap my brain around it, but that really was the mindset, and it was endemic, and that has now changed. Entrepreneurship is welcomed, it is celebrated, it is nurtured, which is more important than anything else. And we really see, I think Europe has got in place the ecosystem to really support entrepreneurship and to build great unicorn companies.
Tell me about that and the nurturing aspect you talked about there, because it's vital, isn't it?
It is vital. So it's things like, just as simple as, for example, your parents not being ashamed of you, but then to the programs that exist. So I'll point out Seed Camp, which was started in 2007, I believe, has been incredible. It just has pushed the European ecosystem ahead in ways that, without Seed Camp, I don't know where we would be. Other organizations like Entrepreneur First, which makes sure that the best and brightest become entrepreneurs, have a way to become entrepreneurs. Some universities have programs where they help people become entrepreneurs. They have even entrepreneurship classes, although that's odd. But in America, for example, you go to Harvard Business School, there's an entrepreneurship club, there's a VC club, but we're not organized that same way here in Europe. And in fact, in some of the more technical universities, these very talented people don't know what to do or where to go with their entrepreneurial ideas, and folks like Entrepreneur First captures them, puts them into a program with wonderful cohorts, and can help nurture that and help them create companies.
So Europe can really learn from the States in terms of that, you think?
Oh, it is true. The States is advanced, further along, mature, I would say. But Europe is doing it its own unique way. One of the things I find most fascinating about the companies that I see is so many of them understand from day one they have to go international, which is, by the way, not the case of the Americans. They have a huge market right there, and they're not thinking about different languages, different currencies. But you get someone from Estonia or Latvia, where their total addressable market in that country is 3 people, they're immediately thinking about all these things that they have to do to go international from day one, right down to the legal aspects. What are they doing cross-border? Where's their information being put in? They know how to be international from day one, and that's one thing they have on Americans.
So where do you see the market going in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? Where do you see key opportunities being?
Well, there are a couple of things I think that need to be fixed. We have great companies, but we don't have huge mega rounds that we can raise here. Absolutely, if you need 50 million 100 million, yes, you can go to private equity, but if you still want to stay with, a venture capital, raise a series D or E, you go to America. So we actually need to have bigger funds in Europe. I'd say that's the number one thing that needs to change, and I think it is changing. I think, there's inevitably the downside of celebrating entrepreneurs is that everybody wants to become an entrepreneur and you flood the market with dilettantes. But they have a way of being, they get winnowed out as well. So, but I think you're just going to see some really stunning European exits. We've already seen quite a few good ones, especially here in Germany. Rocket Internet has IPO'd, but that creates wealth for only a very few people. But something like Delivery Hero, that created some lovely wealth. And you're seeing those very same group of people, and I'm close to quite a few of them, go back and invest alongside me in venture capital firms and in other companies. And that continuing is what we need more of in this ecosystem.
And you think that's a reality, and you have that optimism still, despite the fact that we've been in the sort of second longest bull market we've seen in history, and people are talking about a bubble and something's going to happen and there's going to be a change.
There'll be a bubble and then there'll be and a drop and there'll be a recovery. I've lived through entirely too many of these things to just it's not all over. Your first one, of course, you think the sky has fallen, but you just learn. Any smart. Any smart individual, puts cash away where they can and rides out any kind of bubble bursting.
And there are actually opportunities for the long-term
There's
investor.
always opportunities, again, if you're smart, and so it is inevitable. It's going to happen, whether it happens today or 36 months from now. And just knowing that it's coming and planning for it. In my own business, we plan for it. We're always, we have a lot of cash on hand, always, because we want to be able to ride it out and, in fact, be able to really move through it and not take the opportunities from any downturn. For example, being able to hire the best people.
This is the biggest conference of its type internationally.
It is.
Bringing all these people in one place at one time. What do you think the key conversations will be this year?
I think that, it's very fair to say that it's going to be pretty much what's next, who's going to be where's the next exit coming from, and how can we build these great companies? And we're answering it already. Happily, it's not too much of the discussion because we're actually busy doing it. I know plenty of entrepreneurs and GPs who are here, but who are dashing back and forth between meetings because they are continuing business as usual. They're continuing to build their companies or to nurture their portfolio. So that's something that I think we're seeing. Everyone's talking about it, but now we're really doing it. And that's such a pleasure to be a part of.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been delightful to talk to you.
It has been my pleasure as well.